It's time once again for the thrilling 32 Bracket Challenge. Coaster fans from around the world have submitted their rankings and the results are in. The top 32 wood and 32 steel roller coasters are ready to battle it out for the championship belt. Last year, two former champions reclaimed their spots atop their respective lists. The Voyage at Holiday World took home the top spot in the wood rankings, while Fury 325 at Carowinds came out on top in the steel rankings for the second time in 3 seasons. Can either of these rides be the first to repeat as champion, or will new rides once again take their place on the championship belt? It's time to find out who this year's contenders are. It's the thrilling 32 selection show on this very special episode of COASTER-net Uncut.
Throughout time, roller coasters have come and gone. Only some become legends for their intensity and thrills. Each and every year, coaster fans like you venture to the parks, searching for that one special ride that stands out above the rest. You submitted your rankings, and now it's time to reveal the group of elite roller coasters that you have voted as the best of the best. COASTER-net Uncut is proud to present the 2019 Thrilling 32.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Thrilling 32 selection show on this very special episode of COASTER-net Uncut. I am Danny Miller from Binghamton, New York, as always, alongside my partner in crime, Andy Rabarchak from Chicago, Illinois. Andy, this is our favorite time of year. We say it each and every year. This is what gets us through the second half of the off season here. We're revealing which 32 wood and 32 steel roller coasters will battle it out as part of the Ride Warrior Choice Awards here on the Thrilling 32. They will battle it out for the championship belt, the brand new championship belt.
Danny.
That's
this
right.
Is what it's all about. This is what these coasters give those great rides for every single day of the season. It's so that they can get their logo emblazoned on one of these beautiful side plates. Last year we had Fury 325 as our steel champ. We had Voyage as our wood champ. Danny, I'm excited to see what coasters are going to be on this belt. Are these two coasters going to stay here, or are we going to have to choose a brand new set of coasters here for the Thrilling 32 championship title?
That's right. And for those of you who are maybe new to this, here's how it works. So over the course of the past, 2 months or so, you've been voting in the Ride Warrior Choice Awards, and that Excel sheet had 3 tabs. You voted in some general awards, which you will see the results of those next week, next Saturday. And then you voted on wood and steel coasters, and you submitted your rankings. We take those rankings, we put them into a formula that we've created. We've been using for many, many years now. I think this is like the 7th year. 2012 was the first season. So let's see, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. This is our 7th season doing the Thrilling 32 here. And what we did, we took all those votes, we ran it through the formula, and it spits out a collective ranking list based on all of your rankings. We take the top 32 wood coasters, we randomize them into a bracket. We take the top 32 steel coasters, we randomize them into a bracket. And from there, it's back on you to try and predict which coasters came out on top. So we're going to show you 8 regions, 4 wood, 4 steel, that are the 2 brackets, the wood bracket and the steel bracket. And your job is to try and predict the results of the Ride Warrior Choice Awards by picking which coaster in each matchup you think ranked higher in the collective rankings. So, for instance, let's say the number 13 coaster and the number 26 coaster randomly got assigned in the first round to go up against each other. The number 13 coaster ranked higher, so it will move on. Eventually, your champion is going to be the number 1 coaster from the wood and steel rankings from the Ride Warrior Choice Awards. We do this each and every year. We like to explain that a little bit at the beginning. So your job, as we show you these brackets, is in each matchup to try and predict which of the 2 coasters going head-to-head you think ranked higher on the collective rankings from the Ride Warrior Choice Awards. And that's always tough to do, Andy, because we always say you have to set aside your own personal opinions and think about what the collective whole, hundreds and hundreds of voters every year, and what they all think as a collective group.
Absolutely. It's not easy to do. That, the obvious ones are going to pop out at you real quick. The real skill in this
is when you get down to the nitty gritty, and when you get down to some of those real close matchups that might be ranked 15 and 20 that have in the first round matchups. That's what really separates the winners and the losers here in the Thrilling 32. It seems like it would be really easy to do, but every year we prove that it is not easy to do. We've never had a perfect bracket.
Never had a perfect bracket. We had a couple that were pretty close last year. Last year we had a couple people who I think the top 3 or 4 last year all would have been a new all-time high score. So people are getting better at this each and every year. But just like every year before this, we've got some new coasters coming into the bracket that have never been in it before. Yep. We've got some returning that were in past years and maybe weren't in last year. And we always have, as we like to say, the perennial favorites that seem like they get into the bracket each and every year. So we're going to run this a little bit differently than in past years. In the past, we've gone through each region and we've discussed maybe 1 or 2 matchups from each region. We're not going to do that this year. Instead, we're going to do separate videos on different matchups within the next 2 weeks. So today is Saturday, January 19th. When you're seeing this here, you will have essentially 2 weeks to submit your brackets. Once you see all these here, you will have until Friday, February 1st. And then the following day on Saturday, February 2nd, we will start revealing. We'll reveal the first round that weekend. Next weekend on the 26th, you will see the general awards, all those other awards that you voted on. So that will be coming next week. You have 2 weeks to submit your brackets. And in those 2 weeks, we'll do some individual videos, give you some deeper information on some of these individual matchups. But tonight, we're just going to go through the brackets themselves. So, Andy, any other thoughts before we get into the brackets here?
Every year, people are like, who's going to win? Who's going to win? Danny, I think this is the year. I think this is the year that we're going to see some of the things we've been talking about finally come to pass here in the Thrilling 32. I trust the voters. The voters change every year. And I think this is the year that we finally got the smart voters, I think.
It just may be. It just may be. So, without any further delay, would you like to jump into the wood bracket?
Yes.
All right, so let's jump into it here. We're going to start with the Old Indiana region here in the Wood Coasters. And our first matchup is El Toro from Six Flags Great Adventure in New Jersey going up against the Legend from Holiday World in Santa Claus, Indiana. Then we've got Goliath from Six Flags Great America right there just down the road from you, going up against Shivering Timbers from Michigan's Adventure just outside of Muskegon. Then we've got the defending champion, The Voyage, also from Holiday World in Santa Claus, Indiana, going up against another giant Gravity Group coaster, Hades 360 from Mount Olympus in Wisconsin Dells, Wisconsin. And we'll wrap up the Old Indiana region with Roarosaurus making its first ever appearance in the Thrilling 32 from Storyland in Glen, New Hampshire, going up against the Beast from Kings Island in Mason, Ohio. So,
Danny, not a good start here. Not a good start with intelligent voters. Beast shows up on the first slide. Come on.
And I'll tell you what, unlike past years where the Beast has gone up against an opponent that I think was a pretty obvious choice to beat it, I think the Beast actually has an opportunity to maybe win a game this year against Roarosaurus. I don't know, but Andy, last year our championship matchup was Voyage versus El Toro. Well, we could see that in an Elite Eight battle, potentially, with a spot in the Final Four. So between Voyage and El Toro, which were last year's number 1 and 2, at least one of them will not be in the Final Four, maybe both. I think those are the 2 favorites to maybe go to the Final Four, but at least one of them will not be going to the Final Four here. There's some good coasters in this region.
There's some good coasters, but you have the 2 standouts right there that even though El Toro, shockingly, has never won this tournament. Am I correct?
Yes. You are correct. It's been number 2. It's been number 3. It's been number 4. It's always been 2, 3, or 4. It's never been number 1. It's never been lower than 4. Is this the year that maybe El Toro comes through?
Is this the year that and we see it do well on the golden tickets? We know Voyage is the previous champion. You know, it's on the belt. Oh man, that's
and another more food for thought here. This is, like we said, the 7th year, and in the previous 6 years. Now, Voyage has won it twice. It won in 2014 and again last year in 2017. Outlaw Run won in 2013 and 2015. Never in the history of the Thrilling 32 in either bracket have we had a coaster repeat as champion. Never. The champion has always changed from year to year. So the odds are, as much as I hate to say it, the odds are against Voyage when you look at the history here. So is Elk, you know, if you follow that path of thought that there's going to be a new champion this year, if that's the strategy you're going to take, maybe El Toro's the ride you're picking here. I don't know.
Well, that's real interesting there. So, you know, we'll have to see how this one shakes out. But this one is, I think, the region to watch for the Wood, because I think you're champions here, Danny. I don't know. I think you're champions in this one.
It just may be. So, but let's move on to the next region. The next one we have is the Rocky Glen region. And here we've got Ravine Flyer 2 from Waldemere Park in Erie, Pennsylvania, going up against Ghost Rider from Knott's Berry Farm in Buena Park, California. Then we've got Balder from Liseberg in Sweden going up against Gold Striker from California's Great America, Santa Clara, California. Then we've got one that I think is going to be a real tough one to pick. We've got Renegade from Valley Fair in Shakopee, Minnesota, going up against Rampage from Alabama Splash Adventure in Bessemer, Alabama. And wrapping up the Rocky Glen region, we've got the Phoenix, the golden ticket winner this year in the Wood Coaster region from Knoebels in Elysburg, Pennsylvania, going up against Mystic Timbers from Kings Island in Mason, Ohio. Quite a few GCIs in here, and certainly a CCI turned GCI in Ghost Rider there. Andy, this is another really tough one here.
This one is tough, because this is exactly what I was talking about. I just don't know how the voters are going to treat some of these rides here. There are some real big names right here off the bat.
Mystic Timbers, a Final Four coaster last year, a top 10 in the overall rankings in its debut year. Does it drop a little? Does it kind of stay there? Does it maybe rise a little bit? Renegade is one that's been on the rise because more people have been going out there. There's a lot of good rides.
We've seen Ghost Rider on the rise too because of the retracking, and as people go out there, they universally say that ride is tons better.
Ghost Rider a couple of years ago wasn't even in the Thrilling 32, and last year was in the mid-20s. It's been going up and up every year. There is potential here to see 4 GCIs in the Sweet 16. I'd be counting Ghost Rider as a GCI, but Ghost Rider, Gold Striker, Renegade, Mystic Timbers, I think you could realistically see all 4 of those move on in their matchups here.
Yeah.
Phoenix has always kind of gotten a raw deal. Phoenix has always seemed to go into the tough regions. Phoenix has always been a top 10 coaster, top 5 in some years. And every year it seems like it makes an early exit just because it's going up against all these tough coasters. And I don't know if Phoenix will get out of the first round again here this year. This is boy, I wouldn't want to be the one trying to
tough one. Yeah.
All right.
I don't know. I don't know about that region. I don't envy the voters on that one.
Well, and Andy, it's real interesting because as we move to the next region here, we've seen so many really tough coasters in these first 2 regions, especially rides that have been in the top 10 historically year over year. So as we move to the next region, which is the Pixieland region, you're going to see the ramifications of that, where we don't really have a lot of the top-of-the-line coasters here. We see a lot of the middle-of-the-pack coasters here in this region. So our first matchup is the Coaster from PNE Playland in Vancouver, British Columbia, going up against Timber Terror from Silverwood Theme Park in Idaho. Timber Terror, if I'm not mistaken, the first appearance for that ride in the Thrilling 32 here. Next up, we've got Oscar's Wacky Taxi, a ride that we talked about that we didn't even expect to see here in the Thrilling 32. And here it is, Oscar's Wacky Taxi from Sesame Place in Langhorne, Pennsylvania, finding its way into the Thrilling 32. going up against Prowler from Worlds of Fun.
Hey, Prowler can finally win a matchup!
There we go, Prowler! Prowler's got a chance. Next up, we've got Vodon Timber Coaster from Europa Park in Germany, going up against Boulder Dash from Lake Compounce in Bristol, Connecticut. The first ever champion of this tournament. And our final matchup is the other Silverwood roller coaster, wood roller coaster. We've got Tremors from Silverwood going up against American Thunder from Six Flags St. Louis, just outside of St. Louis, Missouri. So, Andy, as you look at the Pixieland region here, aside from Boulder Dash, who is a former champion and has still been in the top 5 most years, I mean, I think that's immediately the one you look at as, okay, that's the one with the history behind it. But it's kind of been trending downwards a little bit, just a little bit over the last couple of years. I fail to see a ride that you immediately look at and say, yeah, that's the one, or that's one that could potentially win this. I think in this region, you don't see one that sticks out and said, that one just might win.
Yeah, this is the region that there's a whole lot of things that I don't respect here, but a whole lot of things that could do well. I know a whole bunch, you and a whole bunch of your friends got on the coaster at Peony Playland.
Great ride. I've always been very skeptical of that coaster ever since it's been in.
Nothing but good things to say about it.
I had nothing, and that surprised me on that Pacific Northwest trip. I expected Tremors to be the top ride on that trip that we took. And I thought Coaster was the better ride. And I was not alone in that. All three of us, Sue and the Beard Man and myself, all three of us agreed that the Coaster was the best new coaster that we had ridden on that trip. So I mean,
I feel like this is the year that Prowler could go deep, but then I see Coaster at P&E, and I'm like, that could knock it off. Boulder Dash is right there as well. The rest of them, I don't really have that much. I think excuse me. The ones I'm targeting on Boulder Dash, Prowler, and Coaster, and those are the three that it's going to be tough to determine which one of those three move on.
Yeah, and Boulder Dash, people have been upset at Boulder Dash a little bit recently because of the incident, and then they've done some retracking, but some people think it's getting a little bit mean. So I don't know. Is Boulder Dash on the slide a little bit? But I think Boulder Dash, just based on the history of this poll, always being, I think, in the top 4. I don't think it's ever been lower than 4. Boulder Dash, I think, is the one you're immediately looking at the possible Final 4 to come out of here. Dare I say, maybe Prowler's maybe Prowler's the favorite to go out of that top half to go up against Boulder Dash, I would think.
I'll tell you what, Prowler's my favorite. Out of this, there's no question. Prowler is by far the highest ranked coaster I have on this list. But that's always the trap. It's not about your list. It's not about what the best coaster is. It's about what the collective vote is.
That's right.
And that's where you have to really start thinking. Like for me, I'd put Prowler at the end and call it a day. But I know not everyone ranks Prowler that high, and people.
Well, and I finally got those elusive night rides on Prowler this past year, and really, really enjoyed them. I mean, I am on the Prowler bandwagon now, and I was not always. I was not always on the Prowler bandwagon, but it's right there at the edge of my top 10 now.
Yeah.
Which it was not there before. So certainly an interesting region, not because there's a ton of good coasters, but there's a ton of maybe coasters that I think you're looking at here. So really interested to see how people are going to approach the Pixieland region here. All right, let's move on to the final region where we've got a couple longtime favorites that haven't appeared just yet. And we move on to the Celebration City region. The first matchup, we have Raven from Holiday World, Santa Claus, Indiana, going up against Mindblower from Fun Spot America in Kissimmee, Florida. Then we've got Outlaw Run, the RMC coaster from Silver Dollar City in Branson, Missouri, going up against Boardwalk Bullet from Kemah Boardwalk in Kemah, Texas, just outside of Houston. Then we've got a European battle. We've got Troy, the big GCI from Toverland in the Netherlands, going up against Wildfire from Sweden's Kolmarden Wildlife Park. And finally, we've got Thunderhead from Dollywood in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, going up against Lightning Rod from Dollywood in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. How about that? The way it worked out, the random number generator actually assigned the matchup of Thunderhead versus Lightning Rod.
That's not even a matchup, really. That's called a massacre. The massacre of Pigeon Forge right there is what that is.
Well, and last year, for the first time, I think the first time ever last year is when we had two rides at the same park go head-to-head, and it happened twice because we had Behemoth and Leviathan in the first round. First time ever in the first round, anyways. We've had it happen in later rounds. We had Maverick versus Millennium almost in a final. I think we had Behemoth versus Leviathan in an Elite Eight matchup one year before, but we had Behemoth and Leviathan last year in the first round, and we also had Maverick and Millennium Force last year in the first round, if you recall. So, but I think this is the first time in the wood bracket where we've had Thunderhead and Lightning Rod, two rides from the same park, go head-to-head, because, you know, parks with multiple wood coasters that are in the Thrilling 32, kind of few and far in between. I mean, we've got Dollywood, we've got Holiday World, Silverwood this year again. But you know, Lightning Rod, champion 2 years ago. Outlaw Run, a two-time champion, as we mentioned before. This is sort of a region where the RMCs have taken over, right? We've got Lightning Rod, Wildfire, and Outlaw Run in different matchups here. So potentially 3 RMCs out of 4 in the next round going up against, you know, either Raven or Mindblower coming out of that top one here in the Celebration City region. So what do you think? Are you thinking an RMC take over here?
Well, yeah, and that's what I'm saying is that you started off the first bracket with 2 potential champions in there, and now you finish off this bracket
with 2 more, two former champions again.
I think there's a possible third champion here where we've seen Wildfire do well in a whole lot of other polls. That even in the golden tickets, Wildfire, you know, ranks highly. That depending on, you know, and everyone you talk to with Wildfire has only good things to say about it. So depending on the voting pool here, once again, you know, you could definitely see the possibility of there being 3 champions, possible champions coming out of the Celebration City region here.
And Andy, I'm going to go out on a limb here.
Uh-oh.
I'm going to make a prediction.
Uh-oh.
And I know there's a lot of people out there who are going to disagree with me. We said that Outlaw Run would never win again.
Yeah.
We said that Outlaw Run was officially in the shadow of Lightning Rod. Well, I rode both of these rides just a few weeks apart this past year, and I've said it on the show before. I think Outlaw Run's the better ride. Having ridden them both within a few weeks of each other, I like Outlaw Run better. And I think that first year Lightning Rod came out in 2016, Outlaw Run dropped all the way down to number 8 when Lightning Rod won. Last year, it went back up to number 5, if I remember correctly. And Lightning Rod dropped to number 3. And I think that is a telltale sign that people are upset with Lightning Rod. And I'll tell you what, I don't think it's getting any better because Lightning Rod was closed for most of this year. People were very upset that, again, it's having problems. And I also know that a lot of people went to Silver Dollar City this year and had a damn good time because Time Traveler opened up. Yeah. I am going to say it right here. I think Outlaw Run will go against Lightning Rod in the Elite Eight, and I think Outlaw Run will beat Lightning Rod and go to the Final Four because I think it's the better ride. I think people they've had it with Lightning Rod. I think other people have gone to ride Outlaw Run this year. I think Lightning Rod is on the down. I think Outlaw Run is on the rise. I'm saying it right here. I think Outlaw Run is going to the Final Four.
You know, Danny, as much as I want to agree with you here, as much as I just don't. I love Outlaw Run. I got another chance to ride Outlaw Run this summer, just like you.
Did you get the night rides? Have you gotten the night rides on it?
I didn't get night rides because the park was something happened that day. I forgot what. Outlaw Run went down, I think. So we didn't get night rides.
It went down for like 4 hours while we left while it was down to go do the 2 mountain coasters and you know, I think we grabbed a small snack while we were out just because we were hungry, and we came back and it was still closed, and then like an hour after we got back it reopened and it's like cool night rides.
but I got a ton of rides on Outlaw Run, and it is a fantastic ride. absolutely fantastic.
I have a newfound respect for Outlaw Run. I did.
Though, I've had the rides on Voyage. Lightning Rod. I think I've soured on just a little bit. When I ultimately get to it, the ride that moved up the most on my rankings this year was Ghost Rider.
Absolutely.
That Ghost Rider currently sits at number 2 on my list. It goes Voyage, Ghost Rider, better than Prowler. That I put it over.
Ghost Rider, I think, is in my top 6 or 7 now. It's right up there with the likes of Legend and Gold Striker and whatnot. It's right in that mix.
And the thing I have to justify and rectify in my mind is I know there's still a lot of Outlaw Run fans out there. There have always been Outlaw Run fans that, even at Hollywood Nights when we walk around and, say, hey, have you ridden the best wooden coaster in the world yet? And they're like, no, I'm in Santa Claus, not in, Branson. Like, how many people have said that to us over the years?
Yeah.
So Outlaw Run, definitely, I can see where you're going here. I can see the resurgence of people going to Silver Dollar City, the resurgence of people rediscovering Outlaw Run, maybe new people discovering it for the first time. I can definitely see it. I just don't think it's going to
I think if Outlaw Run were to ever win
this is the year.
This contest again, I think the deck is stacked in such a way, this year in particular, with everyone going for Time Traveler and with Lightning Rod having quite possibly the biggest issues since that opening year, maybe even bigger, where it was down for many, many months at a time, and then the new Zero car and everything, and then there's rumors that had gone away completely, and it was just an open front recently over the holidays, like Outlaw Run has originally. I think if Outlaw Run was ever going to make a run and was ever going to beat Lightning Rod and was ever going to maybe win this thing again, and maybe this is me going back to the logic that there's never been a repeat champion. And just trying to find a way that Voyage won't win. Maybe this is the year that Outlaw Run wins it one last time before it's kind of done for good. I don't know, but I'm going to make that prediction that it at least goes to the Final Four, because I'll tell you what, if Outlaw Run gets to the Final Four, I don't see anyone in that other region, with Prowler, Coaster, Boulder Dash, Vodon in there. I don't see anyone in that region beating Outlaw Run. So I think if Outlaw Run gets to the Final Four, it's a shoo-in to get to the championship, and I think that's the key to Outlaw Run maybe winning it this year.
Well, I'll say this, that as always, the wood side, I think, is going to lead you to think a whole lot of things. It's always the wood side that you don't know who the champion's going to be. The steel side has been pretty much locked up. The
wood side, who's in the running. Like the 6 or 7 coasters that are in the discussion there, and that they all switch around a little bit year over year. So it's just a matter of picking the right one. Because last year we had Outlaw Run and El Toro early on. I think, was it the first round that was a matchup last year?
Yeah.
Or 2 years ago. I mean, and that one, that was potentially a damning mistake in the first round. I don't think you have any of those really in the first round this year. I don't think there's anywhere, if you get that one wrong in the first round, where it's a really tough, top 5 versus top 5. There's none of those in the wood coaster bracket this year, I don't think. But there's a lot of intriguing matchups down the road. And this region especially, I mean, the potential of the RMC Lightning Rod versus Wildfire in that second round. And then the potential of one of those two maybe going up against Outlaw Run in the third round with a Final Four spot on the line. And at least in this region, I don't know if I would count out Mind Blower, because I know a lot of people who really enjoy Mind Blower. I think maybe last year it not getting in maybe helps you not push it so far ahead. I think Prowler has as good a chance as any in that region to make a deep run. Those first 2 regions, there's at least 4 that could make a deep run in each of those regions. I mean, El Toro, Voyage, Goliath has done very well over the years. Ghost Rider, who knows how far, maybe that's jumped up. More people got on Gold Striker this year because of Railblazer. And a lot of people, like myself, rewrote Gold Striker and solidified their high likeness for it. Rampage, top 10. Phoenix, Mystic Timbers, top 10. Take your pick in those first two regions.
No, the wood side is always the more difficult side to pick, I think, because there's so fewer wood coasters and there's so much less consensus on what is a good wood coaster. And now with the RMCs thrown out, a whole bunch of enthusiasts don't like the RMCs, don't think they're wood coasters, don't rank them high, and then you have your traditionalists who go for the Phoenixes and the Boulder Dashes.
Yeah.
And then you got your Voyage fans versus your Outlaw Run fans. And
I think
there's so much less consensus on what a good wood coaster is.
I think we've discovered over the course of the years doing this that there's kind of three groups. There's your wood coaster purists that do not like the RMCs. They think they're uncomfortable. They maybe don't think they're wood coasters. They dismiss them altogether. Then you've got the people who are gung-ho, give me as the most intense ride in the world, give me the fastest, give me the most out of control, give me the roughest even, that like your rides like Voyage and Boulder Dash and Hades 360 and your rides like that.
Yeah.
And, your bigger GCIs, your Gold Strikers, your Mystic Timbers, your Ghost Riders. And then, like you said, you've got the traditionalists that like the rides, like your Phoenixes and like your Kennywood coasters. And I think that's why you maybe see a ride like Oscar's Wacky Taxi getting in here. I would throw Boardwalk Bullet, having ridden that ride for the first time this year. I thought Boardwalk Bullet was an outstanding coaster, and I would put that in the Voyage, Hades 360, Boulder Dash category in wild, out of control, beats you up, relentless all the way through, balls to the wall. That's the type of category that coaster goes into. So I'm interested to see how that one does as well, actually. Any final thoughts on the wood bracket here before we get to the steel?
Good luck, because that's not an easy bracket. That's 32. There's a few gimmies I think in there maybe, but there's a lot of tough ones. I've heard a lot of good things about a lot of these rides lately. And this is going to be a tough bracket to pick, I think.
Yeah, absolutely, it will be. So, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Steel coasters.
I'm ready. Let's do it.
All right, let's get into it. We'll start with the Camelot region, the Camelot theme park region. And in the Camelot region, our first matchup is Intimidator 305 from Kings Dominion in Doswell, Virginia, going up against Silver Star, the B&M hypercoaster from Europa Park in Germany. How about that?
Shocking that Silver Star is still able to make it into this.
And not Silver Star's first appearance in the Thrilling 32, but Silver Star is a darling of the Thrilling 32. That you don't see it in any other place. People love the Silver Star in the Thrilling 32. And for our friend Rob Dole, Silver Star, hopefully one I'll get to ride at Europa Park and Area Europe trip coming up. Got to get that in. Speaking of trips to Europe, we've got an all-UK battle. The Ultimate from Lightwater Valley getting into the Thrilling 32. Going up against Nemesis from Alton Towers. Just not far apart, those two rides. So, your UK fans certainly gonna have some heartache here, having to pick between the Ultimate and Nemesis here. Then we've got Expedition G-Force from Holiday Park in Haslock, Germany, going up against Millennium Force from Cedar Point in Sandusky, Ohio. Oh, man, this was the age-old discussion for many, many years before Fury 325 came into town. Expedition G-Force or Millennium Force. How about that? And you know what? The last matchup doesn't get any easier here because we've got Wicked Cyclone from Six Flags New England in Agawam, Massachusetts, going up against Maverick from Cedar Point. Andy, the potential for the third year in a row, the potential for a Maverick Millennium Force matchup is upon us once again. Last year, it was in the very first round. The year before, we almost had it with a spot on the Final Four on the line, and here the potential is here for it again, this time in the second round. However, history may be repeating itself here because, if you remember, in order for Maverick and Millennium Force to go up against each other in the Elite Eight 2 years ago, Millennium needed to get by Expedition G-Force, and I think it was Expedition G-Force that knocked it off. I believe that was the scenario. So we have that scenario here again. 2 years ago, it was Maverick was number 4, Millennium Force was number 5 2 years ago. Always very close here. And, I mean, Expedition G-Force there, the winner 2 years ago, the runner-up last year, Intimidator 305, a former champion, and a perennial top 3, top 4 coaster. Nemesis has been in the top 5 multiple times here as well. Boy, what a way to start off the steel coasters.
I'll tell you what, you got a lot of heavy hitters here, but I don't think we're going to be seeing another Millennium Force Maverick matchup here. I think the bigger thing to talk about there would be an Expedition G-Force Maverick matchup. Because we've talked about over the past few years the rise of Maverick in the polls.
Yes.
Does Maverick rise again? To not like Maverick, I don't think it's a champion. I don't think you have a champion anywhere here. You've had former champions. You have people that could come real close to being champions.
You've got 2 former champions here, G-Force 2 years ago and then Intimidator 305 in the first year.
But I think the steel bracket's a 2-horse race, and neither of the 2 horses are in this race right here. But Maverick being a horse, it would be real interesting to see how high Maverick goes. I don't think it has, the speed and the gumption to get all the way to the championship to become champion. But I do think that it has the opportunity to go very deep into this. And I think the Maverick Expedition G-Force matchup is probably the matchup to watch on this whole thing.
And I'm going to throw something else out here in this region here, the Camelot region. Potential that every matchup after the first round is a matchup of rides that have been in the top 4 at least once. Maverick has been in the top 4. Expedition G-Force has been in the top 4. Nemesis has been in the top 4 multiple times. Intimidator 305 has been in the top 4 every year, including being a champion once. So you could potentially see everything past the first round be a matchup of current or former top 4 rides as recent as last year. I mean, this region, forget it. I mean, last year we had Maverick, Millennium, Iron Rattler, I-305. We had, I think X2 was in that region last year too. Yeah. I think that was the Stengel region last year. This is not any easier than that one last year. This is the region of death if there was one.
This one's tough to pick. It's tough to pick. But the funny part is, as tough as it is to pick, I don't think you have a champion here.
Maybe. And I think the question is, Fury and Expedition G-Force have gone back and forth the last couple of years. Fury and G-Force 1-2 last year, the year before. G-Force and Fury were 1-2. G-Force, I think, was 5 the year before that when Fury won in its inaugural year. So we don't have Fury here. Some people are going to be talking about some of the new rides this year. I mean, a lot of people loving Steel Vengeance, a lot of people loving Twisted Timbers. We'll see if those make appearances here. I think it's a pretty safe bet that we will see them at some point. But how far rides like that might go, we'll have to see. So are you ready to move on here?
Yeah, let's see the next one.
All right, so moving on, we've got the Boardwalk and Baseball region. I picked this one because you had gone to it. I knew you would like this one. So here we go. The first matchup, we've got another ride from Alton Towers. We've got the Smiler, the inversion record holder there at Alton Towers, going up against, look at this, Time Traveler from Silver Dollar City in Branson, Missouri. Time Traveler.
And that's a tough matchup there.
That is 2 very unique, very different types of rides. So that's definitely one. Going to be interesting to see how people pick that one. We talked about Fury 325 just a minute ago. Fury 325 from Carowinds going up against, look at this, Steel Dragon 2000 from Nagashima Spa Land in Japan. Steel Dragon 2000 making a surprise appearance in the Thrilling 32.
Danny Miller, Thrilling 32 Trivia. Is that our first Japanese coaster to ever appear?
That is our first ever Japanese coaster to appear in the Thrilling 32. And a little teaser for you, Andy. We're not done yet.
What?
We're not done yet.
Wait,
There's more coming from the land of the rising sun in the last two regions here. There's more to come, but Steel Dragon 2000 getting in, going up against Fury 325. Look at that, a Giga matchup. How about that in the first round? That's kind of interesting. Then we've got Helix from Lisa Berg in Sweden, the Mack multi-launch coaster, going up against Sky Rush from Hershey Park in Hershey, Pennsylvania. That'll be a tough one for sure. And to finish off,
find Sky Rush a ride that never does well in our poll.
Sky Rush, always one that's been a little bit polarizing in this poll, and Helix did very, very well last year. So one step away from the Final Four last year. So gonna be very, very intriguing to see how people pick that one. And we'll button up the Boardwalk and Baseball region with Twisted Cyclone, the RMC from Six Flags Over Georgia, making it in.
Surprise! I didn't think it would have the legs to get in. I hoped it would, but I didn't think it would have the legs to get in. But here you go. Here it is.
Well, and we discussed whether or not we would. You and I predicted that we would see 3 2018 steel coasters get in: Vengeance, Twisted Timbers, and then you thought Time Traveler, and I said Twisted Cyclone. They both get in, and they're both here in this region. Yeah. So 2018 rides with a strong showing, especially considering we've already seen Oscar's Wacky Taxi as well.
Yeah.
Now we haven't seen the other two we talked about yet, but we still got 2 regions to go. Twisted Cyclone going up against Behemoth, the B&M hypercoaster there from Canada's Wonderland, just outside of Toronto. So, Andy, what are your thoughts here? I mean, Helix did very well last year. Fury 325, the defending champion, a 2-time champion, looking to become the first ever repeat champion, especially on the steel side here.
Well, I'll tell you what, you know, Fury, if you look at the previous bracket too, you know, there's a lot of great rides here, but I you know, this side of the bracket, I just feel like Fury 325 is the one that's going to come out again on this side. That there's nothing telling me different here. I just don't see it changing.
Yeah, I think
and
Fury,
not because I don't want to pay for a new plate either.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, Fury certainly seems like the favorite here in this region. I mean, based on last year, if you look at the rankings from last year, really the only one that's got a chance to upset it would maybe be Helix. Now, depending on the voting pool, we've seen Sky Rush in the 30s before. We've seen Sky Rush in the top 10, close to the top 5 before. So, I mean, Sky Rush is maybe the next one that potentially has a chance to upset Fury at some point, I think, here. It really depends on the voting pool, because Sky Rush is really a coin flip as to whether or not it does well or not every year. I mean, the fluctuation in Sky Rush's rankings every year really changes a lot. But, you know, people like yourself and a lot of other people had some great things to say about Twisted Cyclone. I'll be completely honest. I was surprised at how many good things I heard about Twisted Cyclone. What are your thoughts about Twisted Cyclone maybe winning a couple games here?
You know, Twisted Cyclone against Behemoth, I have those 2 rides very close together on my...
I think that's one that's going to split the audience.
Yeah, that Behemoth has a very large following. People who go to, you know, Canada's Wonderland say that Behemoth might even be better than Leviathan. You've said that in the past.
Not by much, but I am in the Behemoth camp.
And so, you know, Twisted Cyclone, so short. Everyone who rides it says it doesn't feel that short, but the people who do ride it really love it. You know, you get those southern voters that might not be on a whole lot of RMCs, you know, if they don't travel, and they've only been to a handful of parks, you know, that might be one of their, you know, only RMCs they've ever been on. With that and maybe Steel Vengeance if they got up to Cedar Point this year. So Twisted Cyclone, I'm curious to see where it ultimately falls on the top 50. Or, you know, obviously it's in the top 32 here. But I think there's a good shot that, you know, it's going to come up against some pretty hefty competition. All 4 of those rides are ones that have question marks next to them. And really could end up anywhere. Those 4, any of them could be in the top 4 or they could be in the bottom 4 for all we know. You know, that's how question mark filled they are with people's opinions in this poll with them.
Well, and I think the other thing that, to point out here is who knows just how far up Time Traveler is. No history, being a new ride. It's always interesting when these new rides come in the first year because Fury 325 won in its opening year. Lightning Rod won in its opening year. Outlaw Run won in its opening year. It is not outside the question, not outside the realm of possibility that a new for 2018 ride wins at some point here.
No, our poll has shown in the past that new rides can become champions. So that being said, I don't think Time Traveler's your champion here.
No, I don't think anyone's going to go that far. I don't know, but I am surprised. I'm not surprised that either of these made it in, but I'm surprised that both made it in at the same time. Yeah. I wouldn't have been surprised if Time Traveler got in. Wouldn't have been surprised if Twisted Cyclone. I'm just a little bit surprised that there was room for both of them to get in. But when we go through the last two regions, you're going to see there were quite a few rides that fell out from last year. And you could maybe understand why these two get in over some of those other rides. So we're halfway home with the steel brackets, Andy. So let's move on to the Nara Dreamland region here. And this is where you're going to see some more Japanese rides here. Our first matchup here is Mako from SeaWorld Orlando in Orlando, Florida, going up against Asia Naika from Fuji Q Highland in Japan. For those of you who don't know Asia Naika, that is basically a bigger SNS Aero 4D coaster built by SNS. Take X2, make it a little bit longer, make it a little bit bigger even, give it more inversions, and has more flipping than X2. Okay. So think X2, but a little bit supersized for Asia Naika if you're not familiar with that one. Next up, we've got Superman the Ride from Six Flags New England, a former champion under the Bizarro moniker, going up against Steel Vengeance from Cedar Point in Sandusky, Ohio. Everyone waiting to see if Steel Vengeance
there it is.
Get in here. And of course, Steel Vengeance is in the Thrilling 32. Not a big surprise there. And next up here, we've got two rides that are new to the Thrilling 32. One new for 2018, but one a couple years old. The Joker from Six Flags Discovery Kingdom. The other California RMC finally making its way into the Thrilling 32 after 2 tries. Last year being number 33, the first one out. Finally gets in this year, going up against Twisted Timbers from King's Dominion. So there we have the other 2018 ride that we were expecting to see here in the Thrilling 32. So we see Twisted Timbers and Steel Vengeance both here in the Nara Dreamland region. And finally, we'll button it up with Flying Dinosaur, the B&M flying coaster from Universal Studios Japan, getting in to the Thrilling 32 this year, going up against Iron Rattler from Six Flags Fiesta, Texas. Andy, it's an RMC takeover here. It's an Alan Schilke takeover. We've got RMCs, we've got SNSs.
It's an Asian invasion, too.
It's an Asian invasion. We've got Steel Vengeance, Joker, Twisted Timbers, Iron Rattler. Then we've got Flying Dinosaur, Asia Naika. And then you've just got Mako and Superman, which are rides we always see in here that you kind of dismiss. Boy, oh boy, this one's got a lot of compelling storylines, doesn't it?
This is not easy. Steel Vengeance obviously comes out of this, but how you get there, how you get to that point.
Well, I'll tell you what.
I don't know how you get to that point.
I'll tell you what.
I know that's the result. I don't know how you get to that point, though.
Well, I'll tell you what. We're going to learn very quickly if Steel Vengeance did rank in the top few, top 5, top 3 maybe even. We're going to learn that very quickly here because Superman the Ride, former champion, perennial top 10 coaster, we're going to know very quickly whether or not Steel Vengeance is the real deal. If it gets knocked out, we know then, maybe it's in the top 10, but it's probably not a top 3 ride if it's losing to Superman. But if it beats Superman, all of a sudden, it's in like at least the top 5, top 8, or so, and then maybe it's prime for a run. But you know what, Andy? Iron Rattler always in the top 10 here as well. Twisted Timbers and Joker first time in. Now Joker, there's a little bit more history because the first 2 years of its existence it didn't get in. However, again, a lot of people went to Northern California for Railblazer, and to ride Joker for the first time, myself included. A lot of people went to ride Twisted Timbers this year as well. And I've heard enough people say that they like Twisted Timbers better than Steel Vengeance. I think they're crazy.
Oh.
But I've heard enough people say that to make me think, could Twisted Timbers win a couple games here too?
Well, yeah, it can win. I that's what I'm struggling with here, because I'm looking at a ride like Flying Dinosaur, and that's a Japanese ride. Like if there's a coaster out there that I want to ride, that I think is a really amazing ride that I want to really get on, Flying Dinosaur
that's one of them.
Is in the top 5 or 10.
Yeah.
Like you're talking about, like that looks like an amazing out and back, blows up the whole concept of what a flying coaster is. Looks outstanding. Great theme, obviously. I
would say that right after rides like Expedition G-Force and some similar like Wildfire, I think at Cole Martin would be on that list for me. I think Flying Dinosaur, being such a big Flyer fan, Manta and Tatsu, even Galactica at Alton Towers, I really enjoyed. Flying Dinosaur would most certainly be on a list like that for me as well.
And for it to go up against Iron Rattler in the first round, that's a tough matchup.
That's a tough draw.
And then seeing Twisted Timbers there, I loved Twisted Timbers. I liked it a lot more than I thought I was going to like it. So I think that one's going to see.
Did you like it better than Joker? You like Twisted Timbers better than Joker?
Absolutely. There's no, that's not even a competition there for me. I was not Joker. You like Joker a lot, but I thought Joker was kind of ho-hum, like middle of the line, middle of the pack.
I like Joker. I think Joker's a middle of the pack RMC. I think I sandwich Joker kind of below Iron Rattler and below Twisted Timbers, below Wicked Cyclone. But I think it kind of goes more in the New Texas Giant range for me, not as low as Storm Chaser. Now, you're not a New Texas Giant fan. No,
and I'm not. So I think of the RMCs I like, of the conversions I like, Joker is at the bottom. Now, obviously, there's conversions I don't like, so I'm not talking about those. And then you got Steel Vengeance, you got Mako, like you got Ijanika, like this is
Mako has done well in this poll.
Yes,
Mako's always been in the teens.
And new people keep going down to SeaWorld and riding Mako and treating it like it's this out of this world experience. Like
I think Mako is I think Mako is one of the better B&M hypers. I mean, and there are times where those trims hit pretty hard, but if you get trimmed just a little bit, or even a trimless ride, even I've heard people talk about that. I think even with a little bit of trimming, I still think Mako is a really, really solid ride, and a really good coaster.
I think so too, but I keep hearing people go down there and say that it's more than just solid, that it's out of this world. So I wonder who, once again, has Mako gone up in the poll? Like I said, I think the end result of this is clear. I think how you get there is going to be real interesting.
Well, and again, to touch on the B&M Hyper topic here, I mean, so far we're through 3 regions out of 4, so we could see a few more in the last region here, but no Goliath from over Georgia yet, no Diamondback, no Intimidator, no Nitro, no Apollo's Chariot. I mean, they're not all going to be in this last region here, so at least a few of those are dropping out, and those are all rides that we've seen year after year here. So at least some of those rides are going to fall out, like I alluded to earlier, and the fact that Mako is still sitting here in the bracket tells you that most people think Mako is a higher, a higher portion of the list B&M hyper. We've seen Behemoth in here, saw Silver Star. So that'll be interesting. Rob Dole, Silver Star, maybe one that I'll get to ride over at Europa Park there, throwing that out there. So this region has a lot of compelling storylines. You've got an RMC battle right off the hop. 2 that have never been in the bracket. Obviously, one of them's new. You've got the potential. Now, this is looking pretty far ahead. You've got the potential to settle that Steel Vengeance Twisted Timbers battle with a Final 4 spot on the line. Right now, that's a few out there. That's a few rounds away. But you also have the potential that if you don't get to that, Iron Rattler is one of the earlier ones that a lot of people also – Iron Rattler tends to be one that people rank very highly. You have the potential for maybe a Vengeance Iron Rattler matchup. So you've got old school RMC versus new school RMC, potentially. These are all storylines that may or may not materialize themselves. Here's another one for you. The possibility of a Final Four spot on the line between Flying Dinosaur and Asian Nika. 2 Japanese rides may be going head-to-head in the Elite Eight. What are your thoughts on that? I know you don't think it's going to happen, but the potential is there for such a matchup.
Yeah, and so is there's a lot.
Shark versus Dinosaur? Mako versus Flying Dinosaur?
Yeah, there's also the potential for
Superman versus Joker?
That's not going to happen. Like that. Okay, let's move on to the last round.
Okay. I'm just coming up with anything at this point here. So, all right, let's go to the last region, and it is the Neverland region, of course, the Neverland Ranch region.
There you go.
And we've got New Texas Giants, speaking of RMCs, from Six Flags Over Texas in Arlington, going up against Terran from Phantasialand in Germany. Then we've got Leviathan, the other big B&M coaster from Canada's Wonderland, going up against Twisted Colossus, another RMCs from Six Flags Magic Mountain. Speaking of Six Flags Magic Mountain, X2 from Six Flags Magic Mountain going up against one of those B&M hypers, and the only one coming in here that I mentioned before, Goliath from Six Flags Over Georgia, getting into the bracket here. And our final matchup here is Montu from Busch Gardens Tampa, the inverted coaster, going up against Phantom's Revenge from Kennywood in West Mifflin, Pennsylvania. Montu and Phantom's Revenge both getting in here again. Andy, something interesting here. We've seen Afterburn, we've seen Alpengeist, we've seen a lot of inverts. Nemesis and Montu, the only two B&M inverts here. No Alpengeist, no Afterburn, no Banshee this year.
No Banshee, no Raptor. No Raptor.
No Raptor.
It was so close last year.
What's that?
We were so close. I thought this was the year.
Yeah, you were so close to getting into the Super 64 last year. But again, B&M Hypers, no Intimidator, no Diamondback, no Apollo's Chariot, no Nitro.
I'll tell you what, people have soured on B&M. B&M needs to start building some coasters.
I'll tell you what, I think it's telling that those rides drop out, and then you see a ride like Steel Dragon 2000 getting in here. But the Neverland region here has a couple of intriguing possibilities as well. You have a potential.
I tell you what, looking at this region is probably the toughest region to figure out who's coming out.
This is like the Wood region where we had Boulder Dash and Coaster and Prowler. Yes. This is the one where you say, okay, I can see that one maybe getting to the Final Four. I can see maybe that one. But this is the one that, we saw those other regions so heavy with former champions and former top 10 rides and new rides that are expected to do well. That had to balance out somewhere. And it's balancing out here in this last region because, Terran last year was a Final Four ride, did very, very well. First year in the bracket, rides tend to do a little better in their first year. Twisted Colossus has been in the top 10 almost every year since it opened here. Leviathan, a former champion. X2 has been in the top 10 almost every year. There's some that have top 10 potential here, but there's really not one that jumps off the page immediately like a Fury 325 in that other region where you say, oh, yeah, that's the one I'm going to put in the Final Four. Or, an Intimidator 305 or an Expedition G-Force where you say, well, that one's been there, repeatedly. That's the one I'm going to go with. Not a whole lot of history to go off of in terms of Final Four. You can look at the previous rankings all you want, but there is not a lot of rides that historically have been top 3, top 5, top 8 rides in this region.
Well, that's the thing about it is there's a lot of great rides a lot of rides in this region that I've always thought should be higher ranked in our poll. Rides like Goliath, rides like X2, Leviathan, like you said, former champion. Twisted Colossus, we know that's a darling of the West Coast. Phantom's Revenge does well in a lot of different places, a lot of different polls. A lot of rides that you've always thought to yourself, well, wait a minute, should this ride be higher? And I don't know. I'm expecting Phantom's Revenge to get a jump, maybe not this year, but next year with the opening of Steel Curtain.
Good point.
So this might be, a year to look at Phantom's Revenge and see where it goes. And the sky's the limit for that one. And then you have, Terran, that a whole lot of people love over in Europe. There's a lot of darlings here of regions. Terran of Europe, Twisted Colossus of the West Coast, X2 of the West Coast, Goliath of the South, Phantom's Revenge of Pennsylvania. These are all number one coasters in their region. The question is, where are they going to fall on this list?
I'm going to make another
Texas Giant. Even New Texas Giant. The Texans love that ride.
Yeah. I similar to what I did with Outlaw Run. I'm going to make another proclamation, but it's going to be a double-edged sword, if you will. I think we'll see one of two things happen here in the Neverland region. I think we'll either see an all B&M mega coaster battle between Leviathan and Goliath at Six Flags Over Georgia with a spot in the Final Four on the line, or I think we'll finally settle the Six Flags Magic Mountain debate because Tatsu, not in the bracket this year. Full Throttle, not in the bracket. It's been in before. We're going to settle, and this is the one that I think is really the possible one, because Goliath has always been strong, but I don't know if it's strong enough to win 2 games. And Leviathan dropped off just a little bit last year. Twisted Colossus. I think this is the year that the California everyone likes to make the joke that Danny screwed the West Coast, right? I think this is the year that the West Coast takes control. And I think we will see an Elite 8 matchup between Twisted Colossus and X2.
Ooh. And
the Battle of Magic Mountain will be settled, and the reward will be a spot in the Final Four.
And they get to be destroyed by Steel Vengeance.
Well, and personally, I think it's X2. I think it's X2. I love X2. I've always loved X2, and riding it again this year. X2, similar to if there were 2 rides this year, say 3. If there were 3 rides this year that I rode again and really, really reignited my love for them, Prowler was one, and Prowler was one that I was never a huge fan of. Loved Prowler at night. Outlaw Run rediscovered how amazing of a ride that really is. And it is a top 10, maybe even a top 5 wooden coaster. I think that's completely justified. In the same vein, I think X2 is absolutely a top 10 coaster and absolutely should be in the Thrilling 32 every year and absolutely should be in the top 10. And I have absolutely no issue with it being in the Final Four. And I think that after, being, defeated by these higher ranked coasters, getting bad matchups, even being screwed a couple years ago by a mistake by me, I think X2 gets redemption this year because I wronged X2 a couple years ago. I think X2 is going to the Final Four, and it will beat Twisted Colossus along the way.
It's a very real possibility. I've never understood why X2 hasn't been higher in our poll, in any poll. I absolutely love X2. I don't get the people that don't absolutely love that ride. I don't understand because it's such a unique ride. I don't understand it. I think X2 should be in the Final Four every single year, and I haven't understood why it isn't. It hasn't been up to this. Yeah.
There's been in all the rides I've ridden, when I really, really, really enjoy a ride, there's two reactions that I have. Either this look where I'm just shaking my head like this and I'm speechless, and that's usually how I am every time I get off of Voyage at night during Hollywood Nights. And then the other reaction is, what the hell just happened? Yeah. And that is the feeling I get each and every time that I get off of X2.
Seriously.
That's the feeling that I got off of Nemesis when I rode that, especially at night. That's the feeling that I had when I got off of the Ultimate. That's the feeling that you get on a ride like Magnum. And I think the speechless feeling is also the feeling that you and I had, and sort of the what the hell was that feeling was very much the feeling we had on Media Day at Steel Vengeance. And, you can certainly relate to both of those feelings. How many times did we get off of that ride and just say, you can't say anything? No. I think X2 is a ride very much like that, where you get off of it and it's like, you can't possibly describe what just happened. You just have to experience it. And I think X2 is one of those types of experiences for coaster people. There's a lot of compelling matchups here in all 8 of these regions. So do you have any final thoughts here? Maybe on some rides that didn't get in. I mean, a lot of rides. Hey, Storm Chaser, not in the Thrilling 32. Good job, voters. We got one right.
Good job, voters.
Give yourselves a hand.
Finally, voters, you came through on for us. But a whole lot of rides, like you said, Apollo, Banshee, Diamondback, nowhere to be seen. Manta not in this.
No single rails getting in.
No single rails.
We thought that there was a slight chance we might see those squeak in. Not the case.
Wonder Woman, Railblazer, none of that getting in. So there's a lot of big rides not getting in here. Even European stuff too. Like we've had the Black Mambas of the past.
Blue Fire
not here. So a lot of new rides in here. You see a lot of Japanese rides.
And on the wood side, too, I mean, Chuchula not getting in this year. The Wild Mouse from Blackpool Pleasure Beach was still on the ballot. Did not get in this year.
Yeah, so, like, interesting results here, over across the board. So, I'm really excited to see, who eventually wins here for both the wood and the steel. But it's going to be exciting to see what you guys pick, because I'll tell you what, I think on both sides, the 32 rides, a lot of times you hear me talk about, that's garbage, that's garbage. I'm going to be honest with you, Danny. There's not a whole lot of rides that I think are undeserving of the top 32 spots here. There's about 3 or 4 that I'm like, okay, well, whatever. But for the most part, I think you got a good 60 rides here that are going to be tough to parse through and decipher which one is better than the other in the overall.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of the rides that you've historically called garbage, such as, Nitro and Apollo's Chariot, Storm Chaser, rides like that, Lightning Racer, rides like that, not in.
Not here.
Not in.
They could be in the top 50 for all we know, but that doesn't matter. You're not in the dance. This is the dance. We got the 32 wood.
You got to be in it to win it. And speaking of winning it, if you would like to win it, you need to fill out. We'll do the Google form again this year. That seems to be working for the bracket a little better because it's less typing. As far as the rankings go, we did away from that. The reception of the Excel sheet was very positive. Only had a few negative feedback, pieces of negative feedback, mostly positive. Most people like the drop-down menus. So I think we may continue that again next year. But the Google form is a lot easier for us in terms of filling out the bracket submissions. Doing the rankings, it's not very conducive because the system that I created this year requires the coaster names to be spelled correctly in order for the code to calculate them. The bracket submissions are not that difficult. So we'll do the Google form. Andy, you'll put the link down in the description. Yep. Click that link to the Google form. It'll be live by the time you're watching this, and you can fill out your bracket and submit your bracket and try and win the grand prize, which, Andy, will be.
We are going to have, one, you'll get a 20, I know it's a little late. You'll get a 2019 calendar. So you'll have a few months.
You'll have it for 9 months.
Yeah, you'll have it for 9 months. So that's awesome. But you'll also be receiving one of our new, we haven't even made them yet, but you'll receive one of our brand new Thrilling 32 t-shirts. Which is a pretty big deal. Last year we gave away the coaster art prints. This year we're going to do the t-shirt. We're really excited about these t-shirts. And the T-shirts will be on sale for all the losers out there too. So Rob Dole, you'll be able to buy it.
That's true. You can get all the T-shirts. So the way that if you're not familiar, haven't done a bracket before, what will happen? It will be a Google form. It will just be 3 pages. It'll have your name, email, that kind of good stuff. You do have to use a valid email address. You will have to use a valid email address. Otherwise, we will not accept your submission. So that'll be page 1. Page 2 will be the wood, and page 3 will be the steel. Basically, there will be a blank bracket. The entire bracket will be there, and each winner. So, on the steel, the very first matchup was Intimidator 305 and Silver Star. The winner of that the box will be labeled Winner A. Then Ultimate and Nemesis will be labeled Winner B, all the way through the alphabet throughout the entire one. Basically, my suggestion is print out that blank bracket or put it on a second monitor or something and reference it, because the boxes will say Winner A and then you'll type in your answer. Winner B and you'll type in your answer. If you mix match the boxes, we can't really help you there. Yeah. So please make sure you're typing in your responses in the correct boxes. If I catch that you have one filled out wrong, I will try and let you know and have you change it if I can. But please double check before you hit submit to make sure everything's typed in correctly. And we'll have a tiebreaker question in there. We haven't quite decided at the time of recording what it's going to be just yet, but by the time you fill it out, there will be a tiebreaker there. So maybe that'll be a 4th page, or it might be, if it's related to the wood and steel brackets themselves, maybe we will put them in the individual pages. So max, it'll be 4 pages. Shouldn't take you very long to go through it all. Usually it takes about 10-15 minutes max to go through it. You've got that awesome prize. And Andy, the other thing that we will have, obviously, is, well, if we have repeat winners, the belt, those plates get to stay on the belt. If we have new champions, though, if we have new champions, so you have to switch those plates out.
Hey, Danny, we always say, to be the man, you got to beat the man, right? So those are the men right there. You got Voyage and you got Fury 325. So if you want to be on this prestigious belt, you need to beat one of those 2 coasters. And Danny, I think at some point we're going to see these matchups, and we're going to see the championship matchup within these brackets. I think on the steel side, we're going to see it in the championship. I don't know. On the wood side, we might see it a little bit earlier to see if Voyage is able to move on ahead. We'll see what happens, but that's you get your name emblazoned on the belt right there for the next calendar year.
And how about this? I know, being a hockey fan, the team that wins the Stanley Cup at their home opener, the next season, they bring the Stanley Cup out, they skate it around one last time, and then they hand it back to the keepers of the cup, because they're no longer the champions. A new season has begun. I think because we say to be the man, you've got to beat the man. I think those plates of those ride logos, Fury 325 and Voyage, I think they stay on the belt until they are defeated, because right now those 2 rides are the man, and to be the man, you have to unseat the man.
You got to take it away. You got to
take it away.
Remove that plate and take it away. It's not like these sports where new champions crowned every year. No. You have to beat the man. You got to take it away. Just like you had to take it away from Ric Flair and Shawn Michaels. Or Shawn Michaels usually just give it up, but yeah.
But yeah, again, no ride in the 6-year previous history, no ride, wood or steel, has ever repeated as champion. Yeah. Can either of these rides do it? Can both of them do it?
And I'll tell you what, we're on a quest. If there were 2 rides to be able to do it, it's these 2 rides.
I think so.
It's Fury. We don't know. Steel Vengeance, amazing ride. I think next year it's just shoe-in. But this year, I don't know if it has what it takes to overtake Fury. I think it does. Voyage, another big question mark. So we're going to see at the end of this year who's on these plates. And you're going to be able to come around and see this belt at different events we go to this year. sponsored by COASTER-net.
Yeah, that's going to be a great time. So until then, it is time to fill out your brackets. The Google form is live. Go ahead and submit them. We will be here 1 week from today, revealing the winners of the general awards of the Ride War Choice Awards on Saturday, January 26th. And then 2 weeks from today, Saturday, February 2nd, will be round 1 of the Thrilling 32, and it will continue every Saturday until the championship, which will be coming to you that first weekend in March, I think is how it ends up working out. March 2nd. So Saturday, March 2nd, we will have either our new champions or our recrowned, our defending champions, keeping their spot on the belt, rebelted, if you will. So until then, good luck. Please email us if you have any questions. We're not going to tell you who's winning anything, though, so don't email us asking us that. But don't try and get tricky. Someone did try that once. But until then, good luck. You're going to spend lots of time. Yeah. Crumple up the paper, throw them in the garbage, and start over if you have to. But otherwise, best of luck to everybody. Have fun with it. As always, I am Danny Miller from Binghamton, New York.
Andrew Barczyk from Chicago, Illinois.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you next time.
Right on, Ride Warriors. Right there.
That's right.
There. That's what it's all about. The belt, baby, right there.